The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. We're talking impact of the new rules on stolen bases. We're going to talk MLB news, what's going on with those Tigers rolling right along, and other things going on in Major League Baseball. Then we'll bring the always famous ads, drops, and holds segment to the end of the show as well. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show.
Play ball!
Welcome into the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show presented by BellyUpFantasySports.com, Righteous Felon Jerky, and Mahler Bros Golf. I'm your host, Vince Stover. I am joined by the ever so famous, the ever so popular, the one and only senior fantasy baseball writer for BellyUpFantasySports.com, Kevin Wilson. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So hopefully I can live up to that introduction right there. So I guess time will tell.
well, that's the art of an introduction, is making the guest live up to it. So I'm glad I could put something out there to motivate today to get going on. I want to say hello to our live viewers watching on the Sports Stove YouTube page and the Belly Up Fantasy Facebook page, and all those listening in later via podcast on your Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. It's funny, Kevin. I was putting out my MLB power rankings last night,
right?
And,
which I saw this morning. So
looking through the standings and looking through what's been going on this week, and I just continually am amazed by this season so far. It has been a wacky
roller coaster. Don't worry about the breaks because there aren't any.
That's right. And I'm interested to see how things go. When we get Ian on in a couple minutes, we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on in the real world of baseball. And we want to start off with our Fantasy Burner segment here today. So let's jump into Fantasy Burner. Our Fantasy Burner segment is presented by Mahler Bros Golf. We all want to look good on the golf course, but it comes oftentimes at the expense of feeling good. And Mahler Bros Golf has found the solution with polos that look good and feel good. Their lightweight, stretchy material hugs your body, and you'll feel cool while looking just as cool. Their polos are guaranteed to make you look better, but it's up to you to golf better. On a hot summer day on the golf course, there's no polo that you'd rather wear than Mahler Bros Golf signature polos. Don't wait to try your new favorite golf apparel. Upgrade your golf attire with Mahler Bros. Get 15% off at MahlerBros.com with code BELLYUP. That's 15% at MahlerBros.com. That's MahlerBros.com. Use that code BELLYUP to get 15% off. Turn heads on the golf course or wherever you wear Mahler Bros polos. Mahler Bros Golf. Look good, feel good, play good. All right. Our Fantasy Burner segment today is we wanted to take a look at these rule changes and how they're affecting stolen bases this year. Now, we play in a points league, and obviously we get points for steals, but I'm sure that there's people who listen who are in category leagues as well. And we talked a lot preseason about these rule changes, the pitch clock, the disengagements, the larger bases, and how that was going to affect stolen bases coming into this season. And so I kind of wanted to take a look at it and get some thoughts from you, and I've got some thoughts as well about the impact of the rules so far. So, Kevin, I'm going to give you the floor first, and what have you seen to this point in the season with stolen bases and different from what we've seen in the past few years?
Well, the stolen base has returned to Major League Baseball. So as we look at it, and that's been evident right from the very beginning, because on opening day, teams stole more bases on opening day than they have in over 100 years. So we had that indication. And I was looking at the stolen base leaders from the last few years, and D. Gordon stole 60 bases back in 2017, which is nothing near like what we used to see, back in the days of Ricky Henderson and all that. But then the stolen base fell completely almost off the table. I got the numbers here. Since that year, the full season, it's been 43, 37, 32, 41. That's been the stolen base leaders. And so if you were in a cats league, as you just mentioned, you were probably making sacrifices in other areas to get stolen bases, because that is a category, of course, and it's been extremely difficult. Now we look at, because at the present time, we have 9 players that have 10 or more stolen bases on the year.
Mm-hmm.
So stolen bases are up significantly. The rate of success for stolen bases is up significantly. And today we got home and I switched on the TV. It was Baltimore and Atlanta. And so there was a guy on first. I'm sorry, don't know who that was, but
Who's on first?
yeah, who's on first? So, but the thing about it that got my attention was, even before, and the pitcher had already did his engagements or whatever, so he couldn't throw over there again without fear of being called for a ball. So what happens is the guy on second base, or first base, he started for second before the guy was even in his windup. And so by the time he threw it to the plate, the catcher would have to have an actual cannon back there to throw the guy out. He didn't even try.
Yeah.
And so he stole that base. He could have walked over there. So that's just an indication, a clearest indication that I could probably bring up, that the stolen base is back. And everybody talks about the pitch clock and all that, and that has made an impact on the game, but the speed has returned to the game. So I think that's an exciting part that has been missing, and I'm very happy to see the stolen base back in our baseball language.
Yeah, definitely. Let me throw some numbers at you, and I got these off of MLB.com. These would not include this weekend, by the way. So some of these numbers will be slightly old by a few days. But you already said it, 9 players with 10-plus stolen bases already on the season. 81% success rate, highest of all time. Now, the number of attempts is not necessarily drastically up, but the success rate is up. On 0 disengagements, the number is down slightly, 73% success rate when there's been 0 disengagements yet. But they go up on the first disengagement to 81%. And on the second disengagement, which you talked about just a second ago, you saw today, 100% success rate for runners who have taken off after the second disengagement. So that is obviously working. That's the steal second base. The steal third base this season, the numbers that I have, 28 of 29 attempts have been successful to steal third base. There is, let me see here. It's been steady for the last several years. Since 2008, it's been about 77% success rate all the way through 2022, but it's now at 93% success rate stealing third base. And again, we're talking about the players are watching the pitchers. They're timing them out. You have the disengagements, which are helping. Obviously, that time the pitch clock, guys can get a jump because they know the pitcher has to get rid of it. And so they are taking third base at a ridiculously successful rate. The first person to get thrown out at third was Joey Wiemer of the Milwaukee Brewers. And I actually saw that happen. But today I saw him steal second. Right after he did, Yelich stole second. So it's been nonstop this season. It has brought it back in, which I think has made it more interesting. I like to see players run, and you're getting to see who the top tier catchers are as well. This doesn't have anything to do with fantasy, but you get to see these catchers throwing guys out, or the ones that can't successfully throw guys out.
We're going to talk about it in a minute, I believe.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. So stolen bases is a part of Major League Baseball again. It's also a part of fantasy baseball.
Fantasy, either if you're in points or cats, because as you mentioned, a stolen base is a point.
That's right. That is right. So it's adding up for your teams. It's making it's helping you on your fantasy baseball team, and it's easier to find guys to get that point or to get that category now than it has been in recent years because more people are doing it. And I'm interested, Kevin, I didn't have time to look it up, but I was watching a AAA game today on TV, and they talked about that the AAA team, Nashville Sounds, they hadn't taken too many stolen bases this year, haven't attempted too many stolen bases. Yet at the major league level, their affiliate, the Brewers, are. And it's interesting to see that between the levels still, kind of managers having to readjust to the aggressiveness of running bases and things like that, because it is changing how things are being done there as well. All right. Anything else to add with that before we go to our next segment?
No, it just adds in a little strategy because we lost a lot with the DH. And so strategy is one of the things that interests people. It interests me quite a bit. So, managers are trying to figure out how to stop these, from happening. So, and we're kind of back to the, is my brain bigger than your brain and I'll figure it out before you or whatever. So I like that engagement right there in the game of baseball.
Very good. All right. That's our Fantasy Burner segment presented by Mahler Bros Golf. Go to mahlerbros.com and use code BELLYUP for 15% off your purchase. Now it's time for our guest segment we call the Call to the Pin. Our Call to the Pin is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. If you want the purest jerky in the game, you got to go straight to the source. And Righteous Felon has partnered with the best natural black Angus beef producers in the land to lock up supply and guarantee the best tasting, best textured, and freshest beef jerky on the market. Visit righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP to get 15% off your purchase. And just as Righteous Felon has went straight to the source, we go straight to the source as well. Bringing back from BellyUpFantasySports.com, Ian Lemersal. Ian, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Vince, I think my audio was a little light last time, so I'm going to try and speak up a little bit. But two things. First of all, you do a great job with these segments, man, with the cut-ins and everything. That's some good stuff. I like that. And then second of all, before we talk anything else, did you say 28 of 29 stolen base attempts on third base have been successful? Is that true?
That's correct. And that was early last week. So that I'm not sure what the number is today, but yeah, that last week, that was the number.
Gosh. I mean, that's just crazy. And I'm with Kevin. I love it. I love to see guys stealing bags again.
That's what you do.
It was just nice to see that being a part of the game again.
Research right there.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate you guys. Hey, that's what we try to do, right? We try to put together as professional a program as possible, give people a chance. I put out my article on Saturday night. Well, it came out Sunday morning, and I had a guy comment. I left the team off. I listed the Guardians twice, left the Rangers off my power rankings. I had to go back and fix that, but it's okay.
Leaving the Rangers off. There's no you're gonna have to go to baseball prison for that one.
As soon as I saw that comment, man, I jumped on there real quick to see, well, who did I had to double up on somebody. And as soon as I saw it, I said, nope, that's where I had them slotted in and just didn't get them on there. It's on there now. So if you go to bellyupsports.com, MLB Power Rankings for Week 6 is up, and you can disagree all you want to, but they're up there nonetheless. Ian was on with us a couple weeks ago. He does write for BellyUpFantasySports.com as well. A lot of great content out there. But we need to talk plenty of things about the baseball and what's going on in the world of Major League Baseball. And I want to start in St. Louis. Wilson Contreras, the big free agent signing for the Cardinals, comes in, and all of a sudden they're saying, hey, he's not going to be behind the plate anymore. DH and outfield for Wilson Contreras. I'm shocked because I thought it was a great signing. Yes. I thought it was going to be a huge boost. And I don't think they're using him as a scapegoat, but maybe they're trying to pass blame on the somebody.
It sounds to me, Vince, that's exactly what's happening here.
I think that's exactly what's happening. So after seeing that news, I immediately texted a couple Cardinals friends that I have. I'm a Cubs fan, text some Cardinals fan friends, and they think the same thing. They think that he's kind of being scapegoated as, and not just, oh, this is Wilson Contreras' fault, but hey, not only that, but oh man, we really miss Yadier Molina behind the dish. And
well, that was going to be the case no matter what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I just it's been so weird because they said, okay, first of all, they scapegoated him. Then they said he's going to be playing, doing a lot of DHing. And then they said he's going to play some outfield. Today, they said that's not accurate. He's not going to be playing outfield. Good, because that made.
It seems to me a catcher probably doesn't have much. It's not fleet of foot.
That made no sense, especially
out
for a
there.
team
So, yeah.
like the Cardinals play. They really pride themselves in building around defense, and a team like that, I just can't see why they would ever even consider that. So I'm I don't like the Cardinals. I root for their demise, but to see them clarify, that Wilson's not going to be in the outfield, I almost, just as a baseball fan, I like that, because that made no sense to me. I mean, that was nonsensical.
Kev, more thoughts on
I don't
that?
want to speak, too ill of somebody who has the name Wilson, even though he's got 2 L's in it. But and you guys are, as you mentioned, Vince, you're Milwaukee, Ian, you're Chicago. I heard nothing whatsoever about his lackness of being able to catch
So
before now.
So actually, so here's the thing, Kevin, is, having watched him for so long, it was always kind of one of those elephants in the room. Like, everyone liked Wilson Contreras so much because he's got a great arm, he's a great leader, and he hits really well for a catcher. So no one really wanted to ever talk about how is he as a pitch framer, how is he at calling a game. But Cubs fans kind of knew deep down maybe he's not so good at those things. No pitchers or no one on the Cubs ever mentioned that. But us fans kind of had an idea that deep down maybe that's a bit of a concern. And I think it was. Right now he's a 35th percentile pitch framer, according to StatCast. That's not actually as bad.
No.
It's not good, but that's not as bad
good
as I thought it would be, because the way they're making him out to be, I thought I was going to check and it'd say he was bottom 10th percentile, 35th percentile, obviously not good by any means, but it's not as bad as I thought.
Especially with that contract, though.
With the contract, it hurts a lot for them.
Yeah.
He's not a great pitch framer. I don't know how it's so hard to tell how he is when it comes to calling games, but Cubs pitchers always liked him. So we always kind of just overlooked it a little bit. But yeah, they call up Trey Barrera out of UT Austin, the former national. They call him up. Not a very inspiring call up. So I just don't know what they're going to do there. I do think they're in line for some positive progression here. I do think they're going to end up finishing around 500. I think they're going to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, the scapegoating that we're seeing here is truly incredible, and it shows a little sort of chink in the armor of this Cardinals franchise that is such a strong internal franchise. There's such a strong front office system. They're almost robotic in how they build teams so well. And again, building defense, base running, pitching, hitting. They've got it all. They're a balanced franchise. And they never seem to have their issues, especially externally. So to see them doing this, it's just so surprising that they would call someone out this way.
Well, it shows you how much fantasy baseball plays into the fans' perspective. The reason why we don't talk about framing or the lack thereof of Contreras is because all we care about is, does he hit? Because that's how it affects our fantasy team. Yes. His defense doesn't affect our fans. So unless you're a Cubs fan from the past or a Cardinals fan currently, you don't care how he frames. You just care about how he hits. And so when he got signed, everybody's like, hey, this is great for my fantasy team because he's on the Cardinals. That's a better situation than the Cubs. And it should be a great spot for him. Well, and listen, he started off horrible. I've saw leagues where he got dropped in very quickly. I've held on to him in the league that I have him in, and just expecting him to bounce back. And he's done better in recent days at the plate and everything too. Now, his brother, for the record, is a phenomenal framer. I love watching him catch. I watch, of course, a ton of Brewers games, and the way that he frames, especially those low pitches, is incredible.
Oh yeah,
it's neat to watch. But I was shocked when I saw this news. I have not reached out to my Cardinals friends at this point because I couldn't figure out any way to not laugh at them when I called. So at some point I'll talk to them, but at this point, I'm just going to sit back and watch and kind of see what happens with it, because it is crazy. St. Louis is 11-24, last place in the division.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, they're 4.5 back from Cincinnati. They're 9 back from the top of the division. 4.5 back from Cincinnati. I mean, what a crazy start. They're negative 19 on run differential.
And that should never happen with the offense they have.
Correct.
That's a real problem there.
Yeah, but their pitching has been horrible.
They leave Jordan Montgomery alone. I'm good.
So, and now Wright came back too, so that should help.
So I do have some thoughts kind of on the pitching situation. So I went ahead and when I called my buddy yesterday, we were actually talking Ryan Helsley. We're both Ryan Helsley fantasy owners, and that's a whole nother situation. I do think Helsley's going to be fine. I'm going to talk about that in my next piece that should be out in a day or two. I think Helsley's going to be fine. So that's kind of a whole nother situation. But the interesting thing about the Cardinals pitching situation is they went in on they thought they found a market inefficiency by scooping up all of these pitchers who didn't miss bats. They didn't have great stuff, didn't throw hard, didn't miss a lot of bats, but they were guys who force a lot of contact, but a lot of weak contact. And the Cardinals thought was, let's get all these guys who force a bunch of weak contact. We have this great defense, this great infield, great outfield. We'll let them handle the rest. And I think the shift ban is a big, big problem. We've seen it with the Dodgers this year already, but with the Cardinals especially, because they have so many ground ball pitchers and guys who just cannot miss bats with their stuff. I think we've seen the shift ban affect certain teams, and I think the Cardinals are just one of them because their strategy of going in on these cheap pitchers who are kind of finesse guys, force a lot of ground ball guys, weak contact, etc. Without the shift, it's so much harder to cover all that space and to defend against all that contact that's being made, even though, again, it is a lot of weak contact and a lot of balls hit on the ground. They're having a really hard time adjusting with the shift ban and everything. I know the shift ban, there's still some ways around it. There's ways to shift a little bit, and they still have a great defense. They have great defenders all around, but they're really being hurt by that rule change. Them and the Dodgers, and I think the Yankees too, we've seen it. The teams that shift the best, those are 3 of the 4 teams that shift the best. The other is the Rays. Rays having completely different story over there, but we're really seeing this affect some teams, and I think they're a good example of a team that's being just dramatically affected by this rule change.
Kevin, we talked about at the beginning of the year how it's going to positively impact batters having the ban on the shift, but we only talked briefly about how it's going to negatively impact pitchers this year. And so you heard what Ian just said about how it's affecting the Cardinals pitchers. Thoughts on that?
Well, because that affects, you have to have a guy at second base who has a lot of, he's got a lot of ground to cover now. Yeah. And so you need a guy. You used to put a guy over there. Let's say Max Muncy is a guy that comes immediately to mind because he's got no, lateral movement. Okay. So you could put him there at second base because you got the shortstop not 15 feet away from him. So that works. Now you've got to have a second baseman that can cover that entire, side of the infield. And if you don't have that, you're going to be hurting. You're going to be hurt not only in the field, but also at the plate because you don't have this guy who is a great hitter as much in your lineup. So this is one of the things I read that I hadn't thought of, but I was like, that's a great point. And we're seeing that, as you just mentioned, that teams that don't, react well to balls not hit directly at them, it's a problem for some of these guys. And the pitchers are being hurt by it.
Kevin, that's a fantastic point. I think Max Muncy is the best possible example you can bring up right now. I wrote a piece at the beginning of I think it was in February before the season had started about Tyler Anderson, and I kind of theorized I don't think I ever ended up posting this one, but it was a kind of a theoretical piece on how he's going to look with the Angels and how he would look if he still been with the Dodgers. And kind of my thought was, well, defensively, the Dodgers are going to take a hit. It's why you've seen them try out guys like Mookie Betts at second base, because Max Muncy, without the shift, he has so much ground to cover that he just can't cover. He's just
No.
not that type of an athlete. And
No, he's a guy that'll hit the ball, which he hasn't even done that. He's doing it this year.
right,
So,
right.
so he was hurting the Dodgers all over the place, and you're right. So that's why he's at third, which that doesn't really work a whole lot better.
No,
So,
it doesn't.
But he's one of the leaders in home runs right now, especially because he's been so hot of late.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me, he was one of the guys that started so slow. People probably dropped him.
Yeah,
And
they might have. Yeah.
And it was justifiably so. But he's got to hit those kind of balls like that to justify himself being in that lineup.
Yeah.
In the lineup. NL Central, let's talk briefly about this. The Pirates, who've had such a good start, lost 7 straight now.
The entire NL Central, Vince, has collapsed.
Yes.
Sure. I would argue that the Cubs have actually been the bright spot, at least this past week.
Well, even they're 3-7 in their last 10.
In the last 10,
if that's your bright spot, you're not very, the torch is not very bright. Right?
They're at 500, and to me, that's a bright spot for Chicago.
Okay.
I wasn't sure they were going to be there. But hey, and Milwaukee beat San Francisco today. So
I saw that. So
Pittsburgh,
anytime you could go ahead and beat San Francisco, Vince, I'm all for it.
You're okay with it. Pittsburgh, though, I've been saying it, and every single week I've been doing these power rankings saying, hey, they're here. Surely they're not going to be here that much longer. It looks like they've begun their descent. Put your trade tables in your upright position.
Yeah.
It's going down.
So
they'd already be road, kill if Milwaukee, they created at the same time.
Correct.
It was so weird for me to see the Pirates doing what they were doing, especially with O'Neal Cruz getting injured pretty early on. So the wheels are falling off, right? The stats show it. The numbers show it. Their last, 10, 12 games shows it. The wheels are falling off. I no longer, as a fantasy manager, when I see my team, when I see one of my pitchers facing the Pirates, I no longer fear that. I had Vince Velasquez and Johan Oviedo. Both.
That's a rough gig right there.
It is. And the reason I even had them to begin with is because in ESPN leagues, they are listed as RP, SPs. And so they're like a hack sort of, where I can have them on my team starting games and they don't count against my starting pitcher total. That's why I had them. And I was very excited about them. Vince Velasquez gets injured. He's going to be out for a few weeks, probably up to a month. And Johan Oviedo, predictably, but he is completely collapsed to the point where I think he might even be tipping pitches or something, because they are hitting him so hard right now. It is unbelievable what he's done in his last 2 outings in the worst way possible. But the wheels are falling off there. Jack Sawinski, he's not hitting it as well as he was, just even a week or 2 ago. I like Ke'Bryan Hayes a lot, but more so he's a defensive guy. Brian Reynolds is going to be good. He'll be the bright spot. And I think Carlos Santana's a good player too. Absolutely. And I like Connor
He's the
Joe.
guy, Ian, that I believed in not one iota coming into this season. He's proved me wrong.
Yeah, no, he's old. He's getting old.
Yeah, he's almost as old as I am. So that's not good. He's
got the hit tool. At least he sees the ball really well, so I'll give him credit there. I like Connor Joe. I like some of these guys, but it was only a matter of time. This is why, you always say you don't trust the first month worth of results in baseball too much. You don't put too much into it. It's the same reason I was talking to my buddy about Ryan Helsley last night. I'm not going to drop Ryan Helsley. I don't care that he doesn't have a save in 3 or 4 weeks. You trust talent. You trust good teams, good rosters. The Pirates just don't have that. I don't know what they're building. I don't know what they're trying to build. It was a cool run while it lasted, but I think, like you said, Vince, like it's a descent right now. It's going down, and there's not a lot to really trust or be too excited about there, to be honest.
Yeah, I went under 67.5 on Pittsburgh, and I was really worried about that when they're already at 20 wins, but now it's starting to look like that's going to be a safe go. Yeah. I'm also loving my under 89.5 for St. Louis this year.
Oh yeah, you definitely are going to collect on that.
It's funny you're talking about Helsley, and we need to get to the AL West, but I got offered a trade this week for Helsley. They offered me Helsley straight up for, is it Brian Miller from Seattle, the young pitcher that got called up a couple week ago, and he's been lights out. And I'm like, no. And
Yeah.
then I saw the next day Helsley was on the waiver wire.
Yeah, there you go. And I will say this. Bryce Miller, just a quick side note on him. He has fantastic stuff. I picked him up the other day. I'm in a dead heat right now in one of my most important matchups of the season, kind of a rivalry, bragging rights matchup right now, going to the wire. But Miller absolutely dealt against the Houston Astros today. He's got a really hard fastball, a lot of spin, a lot of rise on that fastball, couple good breaking pitches to supplement it. And here's the thing is, I won't go too long on him, but why I trust a guy like Bryce Miller, at least for the next few weeks and to ride it out, is because Seattle's pitching development is absolutely fantastic. George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, the stuff they're doing with Luis Castillo, they are such a good franchise at identifying pitching talent, and pitching talent specifically that will play well in the major leagues. They have they bring in a lot of guys who fill the strike zone, throw a lot of strikes, but throw a lot of quality strikes. Again, fastballs that are hard, that have a lot of carry, and they love their guys who can supplement with a couple of breaking pitches as well. So Miller is a guy. If you have him right now, just for anyone out there who has him, ride that one out. Don't be streaming him. Ride that one out beyond just the first two good starts he's had. It goes beyond that. I'm talking about the numbers here. His stuff is legit, and if he can keep it up and not fade velocity wise, his stuff moves real well. It's a profile analytically that should hold really well at the major league level.
I like it. Let's talk quickly about the AL West, because it's been kind of wild ride. The AL East,
they're playing each other this weekend.
They are.
The Angels and Rangers are playing each other, and the Mariners and Houston are playing each other.
So currently the Rangers are still on top, 20-13, and still a plus 85 run differential. They've been putting up the runs this year, 221 runs total. The Angels are right behind them, 2 games back. Seattle and Houston, 3.5 games back. Houston still not healthy. Actually, they're even more hurt than they were a week ago.
Right.
But we know they're going to get healthy. I still have confidence they're going to play well. But I guess the question is, and Texas has injury issues. I saw the Angels. Did I see that they've won every game where one either Shohei Ohtani or Mike Trout has sat out. So the Angels are finally winning some games. They're only 19-16. It's not great, but they're right there. And then Seattle, who again had a really rough start, has pulled things around a little bit too. The A's are going to A, and that's okay with that. Nobody worries about that. So where are we in
no talk about the A's whatsoever.
Yeah, we move on from the Las Vegas Athletics. So we're here in the NL West, though. What do we make of it? We're still early in the season, but who's going to pull it out? Are the Angels going to make the playoffs? Are the Rangers going to be able to stay healthy enough to contend? What do we think about the West? Let's start with Ian.
So the first thing I want to talk about in this race, we know the Astros are a very, you can expect the Astros to perform at a high level and whatever. They've been kind of disappointing, I guess, relative to their own, typical situation. I mean, they're 1 game over 500. I guess it must be 500 after what Miller did to them today. So they're sitting at 500. I actually want to talk about the Seattle Mariners, team I mentioned a second ago. I love what the Mariners are doing. I see a vision. I see what they're building. I see what they're working towards, and I love it. You look at some of the moves they've made, bringing in Ty France from San Diego. He struggled a little bit, but, he's a guy, such a good hit tool, guy I'm not particularly worried about. Jared Kelenic finally has been fantastic. Julio and Teoscar have been slumping a little bit, but you can expect guys like them too, and Ty France probably to turn it around with their talent. But in particular, what I love about Seattle and why I think Seattle, they sit at also at 500 right now, a few games back of first place in that division. But Seattle has the pitching, in my opinion, to contend with any of these guys. They have 3 frontline, very solid pitchers you can get excited about. 1 ace in Luis Castillo and 2 potential aces in the making in George Kirby and Logan Gilbert. They got guys like Marco Gonzalez and Chris Flexen to supplement that. I love what they've done with their bullpen. Guys like Paul Sewald, and even Matt Brash in the bullpen has been good. Trevor Gott. They have pitching. They have depth. Miller now been dominating. I think the Mariners, I see their vision. I see what they're doing. They're a surprisingly balanced team. They haven't been hitting well, but I think that's probably going to change, while the pitching and the defense, I think, will continue to maintain at a high level. I like what the Mariners are doing. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up grabbing a playoff spot. I don't know if they'll win the division. It's such a good division. I mean, it's such a strong division. You compare that to one like the NL Central, for example. I know the records don't show it just yet. Such a solid division, top heavy. Not really, there's not really a big outlier in the division. I mean, other than the Oakland A's, obviously, but like there's 4 teams that are going to compete at a high level in that division. But I think the Mariners end up grabbing a playoff spot. That's my opinion. Yeah.
And what's crazy is they lose Robbie Ray,
Right.
and they're able to make it work. They lose them, but it's not going to crush them because their pitching staff was built really, really well. Kev, go ahead.
Okay, so when I'm in Rangerville down here, plus the Astros, and when it comes to the Rangers, they've been able to weather, because they've got Jacob deGrom, as we've talked about. He's been injured, but they've been able to weather that a little bit. But if he needs to be healthy, for the majority of the season for them to make a serious run at this division, and we're talking about heat, but the Rangers now have a cover over the top of their ballpark, so it's not like they're going to get a bunch of a boost from the heat and the weather in Texas. They're not going to get that. So they're hitting so well. I don't know if they can maintain that or not, but even if they do, they need Jacob deGrom to be healthy. And I would like to talk about John Gray, but I'm coming over to your side, Vince. It's been terrible.
I tried to warn you.
You did, and props. I give props where props are due. But the rest of their pitching staff has fared well.
Yes.
So I think that it's going to be a heck of a race, and we haven't had a heck of a race in the AL West since the Astros have won it. And they've won it by 10 games. 15 games, stuff like that. But we're going to have a heck of a division race, and it's something to be excited about.
It looks like it's going to be a fun one throughout the year. Again, the AL East is tight. The NL Central is going to be, I think, boring and interesting at the same time to go along with the AL Central. Both Central divisions are, who knows what's going to happen, but a lot of fun things. We need to get on to the next thing. Ian, again, he's from BellyUpFantasySports.com. You can get his articles there every single week. Enjoy having you on. We'll have you on again. Ian, you're always
you were on when I was not, Ian, and I enjoyed being on with you and listening to you talk.
Hey, same with you, Kevin. Seriously, I appreciate it, man. Glad we were able to be on at the same time. And Vince, always, man, this is a great show. Seriously, this is an awesome show. Make sure and everyone out there leave a comment or a review on Apple Podcasts. I think you got 5 stars on there on all your reviews. It's a fantastic show, man. You guys do a great job, both of you. And, go Cubs. And like you said, Vince, NL Central, interesting because of how boring and weird it is in a way. It ends up being a really interesting division. So thank you guys for having me on. Seriously.
Ian, great. Your articles are always great too. So make sure you check them out. BellyUpFantasySports.com. Ian, thanks. We'll catch you again another time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir. All right. That does it for our call to the pen. Again, presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Go to righteousfelon.com. and enter code BELLYUP. You get 15% off your purchase. All right, time for our final segment, Fantasy Focus. Our Fantasy Focus segment is presented by BellyUpFantasySports.com. All your greatest and latest fantasy articles, NFL, NHL, NBA, and, of course, Major League Baseball. All there for you on BellyUpFantasySports.com. Go out and check it as soon as this show is over. Kevin, let's
make sure we're over before you do that. That's all.
Yeah. Well, as long as you can watch and look, I'm fine.
Well, but, if you're multi-directional, I suppose that might be all right.
Kevin, I made a trade this week.
Okay.
Not in our league. I've tried to make trades in every league. Has not worked out for me to this point. But I made a big one in a league that I'm in. I have yet to win. I'm going to win this week. my first win of the season in this league. It's the league that I didn't draft a pitcher until round 14. And so I said, I need a pitcher. So I went out and acquired Corbin Burns. And I got Burns and Vinny Pasquantino. And I gave away Pete Alonso and Michael Harris from Atlanta. Harris just came back from injury. I know he's going to be good. I desperately needed pitching help, though. And so Alonso was the big ticket item, of course, there, and Burns was the big ticket item in return. But I felt like Pasquantino gave me a first base option. And I didn't like to lose Harris, but at this point, I was 0-4. I had to do something.
As you mentioned, Harris is just coming back from injury, and that's a trade I would make.
I was happy with it. So we'll say, like I said, I won this week.
You get Milwaukee, your Milwaukee guy who just happens to be Corbin Burns, who you and I both agree on is a great pitcher. So yeah, that's a trade that's it's going to work out for you.
This has been a good week for me. I'm facing Dan D'Amico in our league.
The defending champion. The champion is getting taken down.
I put him over my knee and took care of business with him there. Let's get to our ads and drops, though, as we are running close on time. So let's get to it. Kevin, who's the first guy you think that we should add this week?
Okay, well, the first guy happens, not coincidentally, to be a Texas Ranger. And that is the young guy over there at third base, Josh Jung. He's at 29.9%. It's gone up almost 10% in the last week. And this is what he's done. He scored 2 runs today. And then the other day he had 3. He was 3 for 5, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. And then against the Yankees, no less, he was 2 for 4 with the homer, 3 RBIs, or 5 RBIs rather than 3 runs scored. On the season, 263, 824, even has a stolen base. So, you wouldn't figure you get too many stolen bases out of a third baseman, big guy as he is, but 75 fantasy points. So third base is one of those positions that we talked about where you're probably needing some assistance there. So if you, not me, because I've got 2 solid third basemen, but if you happen to be anyone else and you're needing help at third, go ahead and get one of these guys. They've got him hitting right in the midst of that lineup that we just talked about a minute ago. So Josh Jung is my leadoff guy to go get him as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah, I'm glad to see he's succeeding. I don't have him on any of my teams right now, but he was my sleeper pick at third base this year as a breakout guy for this season. So I'm excited to see him picking it up. I'm going to go with a Dodger, Kev, and it's Chris Taylor.
Okay.
And Chris, he's got outfield.
I've been back and forth on him, so go ahead.
Outfield, second base, shortstop eligibility, only 5.1% owned right now. In the past week, he gets a home run, 5 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. He seems to he's finding his consistency now, finding his way onto the field, having opportunity, and he's starting to make the most of those opportunities. Defensively, he's a lot better than some of the other options, Max Muncy, there in Los Angeles and people like that. So Chris Taylor's a guy that's finding his way on the field. He's starting to produce. He gives you a ton of position eligibility. So if you're looking for a versatile guy to add to your roster, Chris Taylor, he's a guy to get now and hold on to until he slows down, basically, and kind of ride that wave. Again, he's going to give you some stolen bases. He's going to give you some other categories, runs. So he's not going to get a lot of home runs, but runs, RBIs, things like that, opportunity there is for Chris Taylor. So I think now is the time to go out and scoop him up.
Okay. Can't argue. All right. So the second guy I'm going to go to is to a hated rival. All right. So, and that's the San Francisco Giant by the name of Lamont Wade Jr., no less. And he plays first base and the outfield, which is a nice combination. First base is one of those other positions, not a lot of depth there. And so he's only at 9.6% owned. And today, 2 hits, okay, against your Brewers. He drove in a run.
Yep.
He had a hit on Friday. He had against Houston, and they're vaunted in Houston, no less. 2 for 3 with the homer, 2 runs scored. He's hitting 250, 6.9, 14 runs scored, had 73 fantasy points. So here's a guy that you could add to your team who will give you the versatility that you're probably needing, because first base, outfield, I like that a whole lot. The only thing that could be better is if he threw in a second base, but apparently that's not going to happen. But at 9.6, and it's gone up 8%. So it's probably going to not be 9.6% for very much longer. So if you're looking for a first baseman, go and get him.
My next guy is a guy we've actually talked about before on this program, but he kind of slumped, so we dropped him. Lane Thomas from Washington. He's back on an uptick, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, a stolen base. He's only struck out 4 times in 22 at-bats this week. Again, he's back on an uptick. He scored 7 points, 8 points, 5 points, 2 points. So positive things. I'm scared to death of Nationals players. I don't want them on my team, but there's been some pitchers. And Lane Thomas is a guy that I kind of stream when I need an outfielder. I go and look and see what he's doing. If he's having a good week, I add him to my roster. And I think that now is the time again to put him back on a roster if you need outfield help. And then just keep an eye on him when he slows down. Put him back to the waiver wire. But now's a good time to pick up Lane Thomas from Washington. Who else you got, Kev?
All right. So I'm going to switch to a pitcher, and this ties into an article that just dropped for me. And the pitcher I'm talking about is Tanner Beebe of the Cleveland Guardians. And we know that Detroit is a much stronger team than we thought, especially of late. And they put some runs on the board today, but their offense is still terrible. And he pitches against them tomorrow, and he's made 2 starts. One was against Colorado, 1 run on 6 hits, struck out 8, walked none. Then he pitches against the New York Yankees in New York, 5 1/3 innings, 2 runs on 4 hits, struck out 5, walked none. So 2 starts, he's got no walks, 22 and 15 fantasy points, and he faces Detroit tomorrow. And so he's a guy that if you need pitching help, I would be very, very happy to go out and get this guy on my fantasy team.
I like it. I'm going to go relief pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles. Yennier Cano, owned in 15.4% of leagues. Probably more valuable if you got holds. We do have holds in our league.
We do.
But he has 2 saves and 5 holds on the season. He's been getting some closer opportunities when their regular closer can't pitch for that night. He can sometimes go 2 innings at a time versus 1 inning. So you're getting a decent amount of value out of this guy. And again, he's owned in 15.4% of leagues, and he's a guy worth looking at. He's put some points on the board for me this week, and I think he can help teams. Again, if you don't have holds, it's probably not enough value for you, and the save opportunities he gets are going to be limited. But he is getting save opportunities along with the setup role. And again, he's pitched many of his outings have been more than 1 inning, all the way up to 2 innings. So an opportunity for some value there for a Baltimore relief pitcher of all things. Kevin, who else you got? You got anybody else?
I could probably add some people, but I think
you don't have to. I've got one more relief pitcher from Tampa, Jason Adam. He's
there you go, Tampa. We got to add one at least.
Yeah, well, and they had the injury this past week to the other guy that was splitting time there as the closer. So now Jason is the main closer on Tampa. He's going to get the most opportunity. And guess what? In Tampa, you're going to get opportunities for saves. So it's a good place to have. If you don't have him on your team, you're looking for saves. Jason Adams is a good one to have. All right, let's talk about drops, Kevin. Who do we need to get rid of this week?
I got a guy here that it's kind of if-then scenario. Is most of us don't have any injured list spots opening. There comes my kitty. And so anyways, and I'm talking about Eloy Jimenez.
Okay.
All right. And he's a guy that I wrote about a few weeks back saying, hey, be patient with him. And he actually started to turn things around. He had 2 hits and then 3 hits in consecutive games. But then yesterday, the news came out that he had appendicitis. And I can totally, get with him on that because I had my appendix pulled out of me when I was 13. So I know what he's going through. And if you've got an injured injured list spot, go ahead and put him there. But if you don't, just cut him for now, because there's got to be somebody that's out there that we just talked about that you put on your team that can help you right now, and not have this guy take up a roster spot when it's not necessary. So, we have talked about him before, you and I, and he's a great. He has potential to be a great player, but he's just not been healthy.
Yeah.
Anytime he's been in the major leagues. So if you got the IL spot, go ahead and use it. If not, I say la vie, hope you're healthy, and call me when you get back in town.
Yeah, I like that point. I'm going with an outfielder that was brought up earlier in our show by Ian, Jack Sawinski from Pittsburgh. He was the hot guy from Pittsburgh. He was doing everything, but 6 of his last 7 games have been negative points. You can't hold on to a guy that's going to consistently give you negative points. And as much as the Pirates were this wonderful story to begin the season, Jack Sawinski can no longer be rostered on your team. If he is, it's probably because you haven't been paying attention. Go ahead and get Jack Sawinski off your roster and move on. There are other options like Lane Thomas and Chris Taylor out there to fill that void. So go ahead and get rid of Jack Sawinski. Who else, Kev?
Okay, so we were talking about the St. Louis Cardinals a little bit ago, and another player that was brought up last week, Jack Flaherty. Okay, and this is a guy who, look at this, against the Angels in 2 1/3 innings, 10 earned runs, 10, 9 hits, minus 16 fantasy points. So I don't have any patience. I talk about being patient. My patience is at an end with this guy. So, and cut him, get him. He's going to be facing the Cubs on Tuesday in Chicago. I don't like that matchup at all. So send him to the showers, and just, and before that he had 2 fantasy points. So there is zero reason to hold on to this guy, and just say, hey, St. Louis, hey, apparently none of us like you anyway, so go ahead, hit the brick.
All right, Kev, I've got a guy who coincidentally is on your roster currently in our league. And I didn't realize this till after I put him and did all my research on him. So I'm not picking on you. Tyler Stevenson, Cincinnati catcher.
Okay, he's on my team. He's my team.
48%.
I've been going back and forth on this guy, Vince. I had him in another league, and I went ahead and dropped him over there.
Yeah,
just be honest with you. So go ahead.
Of his last 9 games, he scored 0 or worse. Negative points.
It's not been pretty.
I was looking in our league, Kevin. I don't have a catcher to suggest to you right now.
That's why I haven't made a move yet.
Who you should add. But I will say this. There are 2 catchers currently available in our league that just in the last week have had decent scorings. Diaz from Colorado, Grandal from the White Sox. I know you don't like Grandal this year. And actually Haas from Detroit has had a decent week as well. But if you have Tyler Stevenson, my suggestion is to go see what else you can find there and see if there's somebody worth taking a swing on. Maybe even a young guy like Moreno from Arizona.
Yeah, he's a guy I've been looking at, Vince, and I'm that close to making a move. That exact move right there.
I don't know if you remember this or not, Kevin, but you drafted a guy that's available too, Danny Jansen. But he scored. He's there.
I don't see it happening.
Anybody else we should drop?
Okay, so probably shouldn't worry about this guy, but he's at 56.3% owned. He's a Kansas City Royal pitcher, which just by math alone, this is a problem. And I'm talking about Brady Singer. All right. This is what you're getting out of him. He's 2 4 with an 8.82 ERA, 1.60 WHIP, just 35 fantasy points. Oakland, the sorry excuse, Oakland A's, all right, put 5 runs on the board on him, 6 hits, 3 walks. Right before that, the Minnesota Twins, 8 runs, 5 hits, 3 walks. So that's 6 walks he's given up in just 6 2/3 innings. So it is all putrid when it comes to this guy. And why he's at 56% owned baffles me to no end. He has no reason to be on a fantasy roster. So if you've got him, send him to the showers immediately.
So I have Brady Singer in my 12-man league
Oh, not this one. Okay.
that I waited till the 14th round to draft a pitcher.
Okay.
And I have 3 or 4 streaming pitchers in this league. Let me give you this real quick so you can understand what I'm dealing with. Now, I acquired Corbin Burns this week, so he is now there. I also have Luis Garcia from Houston, who's injured, and on the injured list. I have Ranger Suarez, who I picked up and put on the injured list earlier in the season, hoping that he steps up. My best addition so far, Bryce Miller from Seattle, and Bryce Elder from Atlanta, I've added in throughout the season. That's been positive. But I got Merrill Kelly from Arizona, Singer, Pablo Sandoval. My goodness, that's been hard.
Yeah, that's been a seesaw if there ever was one.
Yeah, Mikolas from St. Louis. That's been painful.
Man, why do you do that to yourself?
I know. I got Scalfini from San Francisco. It's actually been decent. Bailey Over from Minnesota, who I absolutely
thought you just added him, so you could have talked about him.
Yes, he's a good one. I like him too. And then I also got this young guy, Colin Ray in Milwaukee. He's been pitching pretty decent. Actually, he pitched yesterday as well. And he's been doing decent. Okay, fine. I got Soroka from Atlanta, who's yet to pitch in the majors this year. Should be coming up before too long. I snagged him because I just need someone to hit. Like I'm grabbing pitchers, hoping for something good to come from them. Brady Singer, Pablo Sandoval, Mikolas, not a whole lot of good coming. I'm streaming those.
That's like self-torture, Vince. I don't know.
It is rough, and I'll tell you, it's rough. Let me just put it at that. It's rough in that league. I've been struggling, but I got my first win this week, and I'm excited to start turning things around in that one. We need to talk about Gunnar Henderson, though. We talked about him in the preseason stuff, and he's had his ups and downs. He's currently
been more down than up.
Yeah, he's currently available in our league. He's available in about 40% of leagues right now, too. I think he's worth holding on to. Now, I don't have a need for third base on my roster.
Me neither at all.
Or an option to stash somebody. I just don't have that right now. I think Gunnar Henderson's a guy who's going to turn it around. If he's available in your league, if people have gotten impatient and you have a spot on your roster, you have a bench spot that you use, I think he's worth putting on your roster and holding on to because I think it's gonna come around for him. I just don't have that spot available on my roster right now.
I don't either, and he's a guy that I wrote that in that same article about guys to be patient with.
Mm-hmm.
He was on that list, and he's starting to stretch that patience out just a little bit. It hasn't turned around for him,
right?
But
we've got guys in our league, Kevin. We've got guys, Teoscar Hernandez, who I know you're not a fan of, but he's available. It just became available. Josh Bell, it seems to be available in every league I'm ever in.
Yeah, he's available in every league I'm in, and he could stay available.
Yeah, I'm impressed. You mentioned Young from Texas. He's available in our league right now as well. There's guys available. Now we're in a 10-man league. I'm also in an 8-man league. There's all kinds of players available in that league. And then in the 12-man league. So it's interesting to see different philosophies in different leagues. But I think Gunnar Henderson, if you have a spot that you can put him on your roster, I think he's worth having on your roster. And I would not drop him unless I absolutely had to fill that space. I think it's going to come around sooner rather than later. And I could be wrong. I've been wrong once or twice before.
Once or twice. That's it.
That's it. I'll tell you what, another guy, I know we're out of time. Volpe. I like what Anthony Volpe is doing in New York. He's stealing bases. That's where his real value is. But again, he's only eligible in one position at shortstop, and there's a lot of shortstops.
Yeah, shortstop is a deep position in fantasy. So I like what he's doing.
I can have him again. I just don't have the spot on my roster. I don't have any bench batters. I use all my bench for pitchers.
Well, I have bench batters, but my bench batters, I like, multi-position capability, so I can slide them into wherever I need to.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Nick Lodolo, we didn't talk about him. I mean, my goodness, I'm on the verge of getting rid of Nick Lodolo. This guy's killing me.
Killing, and he's the guy that I thought, even though he pitches for Cincinnati, could be up for some good things this year, but it's not there.
It has been a rough go for him. My goodness, I picked up Justin Steele from Chicago. He's been great.
He's been beyond great.
Position. Yeah, it's been good. There's guys out there, but I'm telling you, man, there's two guys to get healthy. All right, Kev, we're up on time.
Okay.
He's Kevin Wilson. You find him on Twitter at Kevin62 WILSEA. You find all his articles on BellyUpFantasySports.com. They come out at least once a week there, and you catch him on this show every Sunday night. You catch him on the Dynasty Fantasy Football Show on Sunday mornings on Belly Up Fantasy Sports Twitter page, and I would assume on Belly Up YouTube as well. I always see it on Twitter, but I think it's on YouTube as well.
It is.
All right, so lots of things coming for you there. Ian Lemersal was on the show earlier. You find all his articles on BellyUpFantasySports.com. He doesn't do a lot on social media. He is on Twitter. You can find him if you just search Ian Lemersal. He is there. I'm Vince Stover. At Sports Stove is the Twitter and Instagram handle. You can find my articles on BellyUpSports.com, and I haven't put one on the fantasy site in a while. You and Ian are knocking them out, so I've just kind of been letting you guys.
So if you're looking for fantasy baseball, we're blowing the doors off.
Oh yeah,
over there on the Belly Up Fantasy site. Everybody's like, "Oh, we got to talk about football and everything else because they just had to draft." And no, baseball is there. It's live, and Ian. I just want to mention, hey, if you don't like to do your research, go to Ian's articles. He will take care of that for you.
He's got lots of research in there. This podcast, of course, is live every Sunday night. We'll be back next week with more. I also have a show live on Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock.
That's right.
Last week we had.
I don't know if you well, of course, you were on the show, but I saw that your broadcast had viewers up the wazoo because you had that special guest on.
Yeah, we had Tennessee Titans safety Matthew Jackson on the show. He's an undrafted free agent, just signed with Tennessee. Great conversation with him. Had a great time.
I enjoyed it, and when I saw how many viewers on YouTube, I don't know about anywhere else. I'm sure it was elsewhere, but it was like, wow.
Yeah.
This has got some viewing going on right here.
It was fun. But Matt, I've interviewed Matt 4 or 5 times on my Local Hour podcast. He played at Eastern Kentucky University. We've talked many times. We've chatted off the air, become friends, and so excited for him. It really was a fun interview. Hope you'll go back and listen to it. I try to drop a Local Hour episode every Friday morning, audio only on the podcast. Last week I did not drop a Local Hour, but this week we do intend to talk a lot of baseball right now on that, having baseball players on, so from Eastern Kentucky. So
as you should.
Well. Yes. So there you go. That's everything there. If you like the show, rate, review, subscribe, share, all those good things as well. Catch us back next week, Sunday, live, 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Sports Stove YouTube and the Belly Up Fantasy Facebook page. Thank you to Righteous Felon Jerky, Mahler Bros Golf, and Belly Up Fantasy Sports for their support of this program. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Kevin, thank you for joining again tonight.
Always a pleasure, Vince. So, I'm happy.
All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.
See you later.